Welcome to Issues. As you know, Issues is a program that deals with what's happening in Bermuda. Today our first guest is someone fantastic, and we'll now have the opportunity of meeting her, Colleen English DeGrellin. Now, you are the new executive director of PALS.
Yes.
How does that feel?
It's very exciting. I'm loving the opportunity and the challenge, and I love it so far.
In fact, it's just been, what, 2 weeks, 1 week?
This is my third week.
Oh, this is your third week. Very, very good. Now, Colleen, tell us a little bit about your background that makes you qualified for this position.
Okay. I've been a social worker for 30 plus years without giving my age away. In my Bermuda life, I've been at King Edward for 13 years. I was the clinical supervisor of the medical social work department. And I have, lots of experience with the insurance world, with the philanthropic world in Bermuda. I've been on the board of directors for the Sunshine League. And I think I also, lately, I've been focusing more my skills on palliative care, end-of-life care, and so I think I was just drawn to this position.
A natural fit.
Yes.
Now, as you've moved over to PALS, across the street from the hospital, and by the way, some of you who may have been long-term watchers of this show would be familiar with Colleen in her previous role as the social work director for King Edward, because we did talk to her then. But now, you've moved across the street. What do you see as maybe some of your challenges in this new position?
I think obviously the challenge that's hitting everybody right now is fundraising. That's a big one, and trying to do something different, something that not everybody's doing. It's always trying to think of fun ways to raise money and get the word out there. We're trying to remarket PALS as well. Not, just let everybody know exactly what we do.
I know you've shared with me at least one of the marketing strategies in terms of some of the folks from the hospital. Share a little bit of that with us.
So we're having an open house next week that we've invited a lot of BHB hospitalists and medical officers, the allied health team, nurse managers, nurses, emergency department. We want to get out there about what PALS does, and that we're not just an end-of-life agency. We do all continuum of care through the whole disease process. We do work with just patients that have cancer, but we do a lot more than just end-of-life work. We have a social worker, we have bereavement counseling, we have grief counseling, we have lots of support, we have financial support available for people that need it.
Yeah, and I think you were sharing with me, even though the hospital is just across the street, some of the administrators over there weren't even familiar with the work that PALS is presently doing. That's one of the reasons for the open house.
Right. On my first day, some people had come to visit, and they said, "Oh, I've never been over here. I don't really even know what you do." And I'm like, "Oh, we need to tell people what we do."
Now, of all the things that PALS is involved in, what would be, if you should look at all the goals, what would you take probably to be the major function of PALS?
My goal is to have every single patient with active cancer in Bermuda to be referred to PALS. So I would like to see that happen. I would like to see that we support everybody. Not everybody may need us full-time. Some people may need us a little bit here and then not need us again for a month or two, but I just want them all to know we're there for them.
Okay. Now, you shared a little bit of your vision of PALS. Now, PALS, capital P, capital A, capital L, capital S. What do those letters mean?
So it means Patient Assistance League and Service.
Ah, Patient Assistance League
and Service.
Very good. Now, PALS, it's beginning. You're fairly new in this position. So are you familiar in terms of how PALS and why PALS originated?
I'm learning more and more. I've been reading up on the charity. It looks like it started as a group of nurses that just volunteered to help people that were stuck in the hospital that had cancer and needed a friend or a pal. So they started just volunteering, and then they found that it was working, and they were actually getting people home with this pal, and people were actually liking it.
Oh, that's the PAL.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh. So they were actually liking this, and people had smiles on their faces, and they weren't dying today or tomorrow. And so then this Miss Hillary Soares in 1980 started the charity. And she, and it's grown from there. We now have 5 nurses, we have a part-time social worker, we have 2 administrators, we have volunteers. We can always use more, but and it's growing.
Okay. Mentioning volunteers, the telephone number for PALS
is 236-7257.
236-7257.
Or info@pals.bm.
Okay. We have been talking with Colleen English, the new Executive Director of PALS. You've just heard the phone number for PALS. And PALS, we're always looking for volunteers. So give Colleen a call and let her know that you would be willing to volunteer. And we will be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. In the first half, we were talking with Colleen English DeGrella, the newly elected Executive Director of PALS. And in the second half, we also have some individuals from another charity, Friends of Hospice. We have the Executive Director with us, Kathy Belvedere, and we also have the Program and Volunteer Director. But first, let's talk to Kathy. Kathy, tell us, what is the connection between Friends of Hospice and Agape?
Agape House was actually put into place some 25 plus years ago, and shortly thereafter, about 4 to 5 years after, Friends of Hospice came along. Both actually were with the late Hillary Soares,
who also had the connection with PALS.
Yes, she did.
Very
yes, she
good.
was certainly a woman of vision.
Yes.
She definitely had her finger on the pulse of the community,
Yes.
and and what was needed to actually provide support to different aspects of individuals with health challenges. We actually, Friends of Hospice, are the only charity that support hospice and palliative care in Bermuda, and we provide that support directly to Friends of Hospice in the way of anything outside of medical needs. Bermuda Hospitals Board actually own the property and the building. They pay for all of the medical needs as far as staffing, medical supplies, different things like that, support for Agape House, for IT, any of the medical equipment and whatnot. Friends of Hospice steps in to support anything that's outside of that budget. We pick up all of the costs for the kitchen. We pay for a full-time chef during the week, and we also have a part-time chef on weekends. We pay for all of the food, the water, the gas, everything that comes to providing the food for the patients. Part of the reason that we do that is because we want people to really enjoy their final days, and we are there to provide them with whatever meal they would ideally like to have, whatever their favorites are. We will do everything we can to be able to provide that.
Yeah. And in terms of the meal, I know for a fact it's like having your own personal chef.
Yes, it is.
Whatever
yes.
the patient wants to eat, the chef will provide it.
That's quite correct. And more recently, we've actually been able to say that has included lobster. I used to say, well, it is, but if that's what somebody wants and they're in their final days, then why not? We want them to have a really good experience at end of life.
Yeah. Now, are you familiar with some of, when someone dies, are you familiar? I've heard the family many times say that coming over to Agape House, they felt free, they felt a very close interaction with their loved ones. Is this the type of things that Friends of Hospice is hearing from the families?
It is for sure. Many people say they feel as if they've come home when they come there. It is a former cottage. It's a very old cottage. It has a lot of charm. But it really is a home. We've got a large living room, we've got a dining room, in addition then to the rooms, the reception area and whatnot. And that's exactly it. The nurse to patient ratio is really good. There are 4 nursing staff on during the day, and we have 8 beds.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, 8 beds. Now, is that enough? 8 beds, is that enough, or do you really need more beds? And I know that it cannot accommodate more, but in a place like Bermuda, Agape being the only facility of its kind, is 8 beds really enough, or is it too many, or what?
It usually is adequate. We do some palliative care, we do some hospice, pure hospice, end-of-life care. Probably about 60% of the patients that come through are there because they are actively dying. The other 40% are there for medication management, pain management, whatnot, and then they're discharged home. And that's where more of the palliative care comes in rather than the pure hospice care.
That last part that you mentioned, many individuals in Bermuda associate Agape with the person who's going to die.
Yes.
But you've just indicated they come for pain management, they come for other things.
Yes, they do.
So the picture of Agape, if the doctor mentioned, I'd like your loved one to be at Agape for a period of time, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is actively dying. It might be for pain management or something else.
That's right, exactly. And it is a misnomer. And we do everything we can to kind of change that. And this is a wonderful opportunity, again, to get that message out to the community.
Okay. Now, Jalise, program director, program volunteer.
Program and volunteer coordinator.
What does that involve?
Everything. Programs, we have various different programs at Agape House, like the meal service. We also do afternoon tea on a Friday. Every Friday you can come up to Agape House and enjoy afternoon tea from about 3:30 to after 5:30, 6 o'clock sometimes. And so life appreciation is a big thing for us as well.
Life appreciation?
Yes.
What is that?
That includes birthdays, milestones, any special wedding anniversaries, anything that the patient wants to celebrate. We step in and try to celebrate that as well. We have our bereavement programs. I'm a big part of that. And the volunteer program as well, volunteer coordinator. Volunteers are a big part of what we do.
What are you expecting the volunteers to do?
Well, they can help out at Agape House, so you can help out at the reception desk, making sure to man the desk and greeting the visitors, letting them know where their loved one is, which room they're at. It's always nice to have a warm face when you walk in the door, so we try to make sure that there is someone always at the desk. You can help out with meal service, helping Marcy in the kitchen, preparing the meals, taking them to the rooms, feeding the patients if necessary, helping out with the afternoon tea every Friday. Right now we have someone that's helping us get our outdoor furniture together as the warmer months are coming. And so there's a lot to do. You can also become a trained volunteer companion as well.
Now, and you have a pretty extensive training program.
Yes, it is.
Tell us a little bit about that program.
It's a 7-week training. It's usually either in the fall of the year or in the beginning of the year, so from February until March. So it's 7 weeks. You commit to the 7 weeks. You come for about 3 hours for one night a week. We usually have it at PALS because we do it in conjunction with PALS. And you have to commit. You want to do this course because you want to have one-on-one contact with the patients. And it doesn't have to just be the patients at Agape House. It's PALS patients as well. And then Dr. Alakani, which is the lead physician at Agape House, she also sees patients out in the community. So our trained volunteer companions can see people at Agape House and out in the community.
Okay. Now, you mentioned something, and maybe I should ask this to you, Kathy. Dr. Alakani, Jalise indicated that she sees patients in the community.
Yes.
Which is quite interesting. Now, how is someone referred to Dr. Alakani?
Usually by their GP, but they may also be referred by one of the hospitalists at King Edward. And yeah, she sees not only cancer patients, which is really PAL's forte,
right,
and their support is primarily is only to cancer patients. Dr. Alakani sees a patient no matter what their serious illness is, and she visits them at home. She visits them if they're in King Edward. She has some patients that are referred, as I said, by the hospitalist, which would then be King Edward patients. And then her office is actually located at Agape House, and she has the main responsibility for all of the patients that are actually inpatient at Agape.
Wow. Now, Jalise, there is a program Bereavement Cafe. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Bereavement Cafe has come about because we feel like it's a need in the community to provide some type of grief support for those who have lost a loved one. And so it's the second Tuesday of every month at the Masterworks Museum in Paget. You can drop in. It's not a closed group. It's an open group to everyone. It doesn't matter if you just lost someone 2 months ago, 3 days ago, 16 years ago. You're all welcome to come out. It's from 12:30 to 1:30, and you can call PALS or Friends of Hospice for more information.
Is there a cost to this?
No, there's no cost at all. No.
I think that is an interesting program, and again, as Jalise said, it is the second Tuesday of the month, 12:30 to 1:30. We understand that people may be on their lunchtime, so we will respect that time, 12:30 to 1:30 at the Masterworks Museum.
Yes.
And by the way, it's also a nice museum that you can walk
is.
through and see things. So what do you see, Kathy, for the goals as you look at the future of Friends of Hospice? What are some of the things that you see? Providing more money for Agape, expanding your services?
Expanding services actually is something that we're always looking at. We've done a lot of research of hospices around the world to see kind of what sort of services are, they're providing, and listening also to the needs of the family members and to the patients of what sorts of things they're looking for. We provide complementary therapies as well, massage therapy, pet therapy, Reiki, hairdressing,
Some
manicures.
people listening might be saying, I don't want to die, but I like all those services.
Yes. And we were doing what we were calling a caregivers day on a Saturday, which was very similar to our day hospice. Day hospice we do Mondays and Thursdays, and that's for people who are still struggling along with an illness, not ill enough to have to be hospitalized or at Agape, but not well enough to go back to work. And so they come either on a Monday or a Thursday, and they get a day of pampering, basically. They become a support group to one another. And then we've recently just changed what was our caregivers program, and it's now going to be a family or a friends and family support group. And it's really going to be for people who have somebody in their life that is seriously ill, and just coming along and trying to figure out what's next? How do I deal with what's going on? Where do I get certain help? And it'll be on Mondays and Wednesdays from 5:30 to 6:30 in our day hospice area.
I didn't know you were involved in so many services.
Yeah.
Now, on Mondays, what is it that you have on Mondays?
Day hospice.
And what is involved in the day hospice?
So it's from 10 to 3 p.m. 10 o'clock we come in for the first hour, and they do a check-in. So they talk about what's going on, what's happening with the illness, the pain, medication, anything that's happening with them for the whole week. And then from 11 to 12 we offer meditation. We have a volunteer that comes in, Jillian Motier, and she does meditation with the group. A lot of people benefit from it. They say when they're up at the middle of the night and the pain is really hitting them, they use the breathing techniques that they learned. From 12 to 1, we do a lunch. Marcy prepares lunch for the group, home-cooked meal. And then from 1 to 3, we have different activities. So it can be art therapy, pet therapy, massage therapy, manicures, pedicures, and then they go out on great excursions too.
Now, do you have to be a patient in Agape to participate in that activity?
Yes, you can be a patient at Agape House. If you're mobile and coherent enough to participate in a group setting, you can come down to participate, or the patients are either referred from PALS or Dr. Alakani's patients.
Okay, very good. So it's on a referral basis.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, we have been talking with the program director and the executive director for Friends of Hospice, and as you've heard, they are very, very much involved with PALS. One last question. In the first section, Colleen mentioned the challenge of fundraising, and I think probably all the charities in Bermuda are facing that. How has it impacted your budget?
Gosh, I think we've been really blessed, and I would imagine that to a certain extent PALS are as well, with memorial donations. And then we do fundraisers. We have a number of them throughout the year, and our board previously, I think, had been very frugal, and so they've been very, I guess, cognizant of the fact that you can't always depend on money being easily available. And so we have a real stringent look at different things before we implement them. Our budget annually, we look at, not trying to go too much to the extreme, because we don't want to end up in a deficit. We don't want to end up having to cancel programs or reduce programs. But I think we've been really, really fortunate. And maybe it is because we are the only charity, that supports hospice and palliative care. And I think it's something that, as unfortunate as it might be, everybody has to experience a loved one having some sort of an illness. And whether that means that they do get well enough and they recover, or it means that they're seriously ill and, they may still struggle along for a couple of years, or, they're actually actively dying. We're the only ones who provide the support. So I think that kind of goes a long way. I like to feel that our story is an easy one to tell. It's not difficult to kind of gain support for the work that we do, because everybody at some point experiences the loss of a loved one, and you want your loved one to have everything that they need at their end of life. And we try to make it so that everybody really lives until they die.
Yeah, very good. Again, we've been talking with the Executive Director and the Program and Volunteer Director of the Friends of Hospice. And we understand that Friends of Hospice has been quite fortunate. Those of you out there have been very good in terms of supporting Friends of Hospice with your finances. And we appreciate what you're doing. Again, we would like to remind you of the Bereavement Cafe at the Masterworks Museum every second Tuesday from 12:30 to 1:30. You can just drop in, and it's for those of you who might be going through some struggles in terms of a lost one, or who might want to share something with others who are have suffered a loss of a loved one. So we invite you again, the second Tuesday of every month, Masterworks Museum. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.